Shady Pixel is our tech behind the scenes on this particular event.
Apparently we're live.
And we're live. So,
be live.
Welcome. Welcome to the SIGGRAPH 2018 Facebook Live chat. This particular forum has a focus on education and next, what SIGGRAPH is looking forward to in the future, which is an interesting consideration since we're an organization that's all about inventing the future anyhow. We are pleased to welcome today, in your upper left, I believe, I can't see what your view is, Erik Brunvand, who's the head of our education focus track for the conference. It changes names every year from what it is, but he's the one who sort of makes sure that educators are properly represented and what they're doing and sharing is properly shared with our audience. We also have Daniel Szecket. Daniel is one of the contributors to the SIGGRAPH Next session this year. And we'll also be talking a little bit about the Business Symposium. SIGGRAPH Next and the Business Symposium are both new this year. So if you have any questions at all during the session, go right ahead and type those in the comments. We'll make sure that we have our moderator focus those up to us so we can respond to you in a timely fashion. So I'll start real quick with an overview of what the Business Symposium is this year. My name is MK Haley. I've been involved with SIGGRAPH since 1989. And so I've touched a variety of programs from both the committee level and the executive committee level. This year we're looking at SIGGRAPH Next is what I'm tasked with to focus on what are our next big areas. The SIGGRAPH Symposium is an opportunity for SIGGRAPH to connect with our business community, the researchers and the business leaders. Often these are the folks approving attendees coming to the conference, so it's important that they get a good understanding of what all our priorities and what the content is. It's more of a compressed schedule. They're on site for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, before the conference starts. And it's a high-level range of speakers talking about the history of the industry, business models. Particularly this year, there's a focus on emerging media distribution. So what's happening in television, film, online, how is that content being created and distributed in new ways, and what sorts of business models and other technologies need to be able to allow that to happen. So if anyone has any questions about that in particular, you can go ahead and submit that in the comments and we'll answer that. Also, every venue at SIGGRAPH, of course, has its own section on the SIGGRAPH 2018 website. You can get a nice overview of the venue's mission statement. As content is accepted, who will be speaking and presenting will be listed there as well. And there's nice little overview videos from each venue chair. So to start off, let's talk about the Educators Forum, what Erik has planned for this year, sort of the history of the venue and where he's going.
Sure. The Educators Forum is a set of panels and talks and courses at SIGGRAPH that are directly targeted at educator attendees. I think, you know, the Educators Forum has been going on in some form for 4 or 5 years, but it really crystallized into an actual sort of an identifiable separate event in the last couple years. The potentially confusing thing about the Educators Forum is that when you think about education at SIGGRAPH, you might think courses, because SIGGRAPH has a history of tremendously interesting courses for attendees to learn something about the state of the art in computer graphics. The Educators Forum is actually targeted not at educating attendees, but for educator attendees. So it's slightly different. So the Educators Forum is a set of sessions for educators. We know that there are a lot of educators who come to SIGGRAPH. They are everything from K-12 up to community colleges, four-year universities, graduate schools, and we have identified a set of content that we think would be interesting for educators to take back to their institutions in terms of education-related content, not learning something about graphics.
And do you have any particular target demographic, university level, high school, grade school, or is it across the board?
It's across the board, although I have to say we don't have as much grade school content as, you know, would be fun to have, but it is we try and be sort of across the board. So if I can, one of the exciting new things at SIGGRAPH this year for SIGGRAPH 2018 is that we have emulated a very popular program from a sister conference. So the ACM has a lot of conferences, of course, and there is a sister conference called SIGC, which is the Computer Science Education SIG, and they've had for many, many years a long-running, very popular program at SIGC they call Nifty Assignments. And the Nifty Assignments program has attendees bring to the conference assignments that they think are nifty in some way, and they package them up into information that people can take home from the conference and directly use in their courses. So it's class assignments, it's grading rubrics, it's solution examples, it's all sorts of things that you can just pick up and take back to your institution. We thought this would be fantastic to do in the computer graphics and interactive techniques realm. And the only problem is that we can't use the name Nifty Assignments because they've used that for years. So we're calling it Groovy Graphics Assignments. And so this year, for the first year, we have 2 sessions in the Educators Forum devoted to these groovy graphics assignments, which are assignments related to computer graphics and interactive techniques that you can, as an educator, pick up, take home, use in your classes directly. And we think it's going to be a very popular, very exciting thing for educators to take back from SIGGRAPH.
And is there some place that this all lives for somebody who's interested in it after the fact or who wasn't able to come to the conference?
Oh, absolutely, yes. So for many years, SIGGRAPH has actually had a site for archiving educational materials. It's called CGEMS, the Computer Graphics Educational Materials Source. But I have to say CGEMS has languished in the last few years, and so this is also an attempt to sort of reboot CGEMS, and all of these groovy graphics assignments will be archived on the CGEMS website, where you can come after the conference, pick up a little tar bundle for the assignment that you find interesting and take it back and use it.
SIGGRAPH has also started, as of 2013, a SIGGRAPH University YouTube channel.
Yep.
So courses from across the conference, from the courses program, from the educators program, are selectively videotaped and then put online for people to enjoy after the fact. So some of our community may find resources there as well. Absolutely,
those are great. I've gone back and looked at those myself. You know, they're the courses at SIGGRAPH, which again are slightly different than the Educators Forum, but the courses at SIGGRAPH are just a tremendous resource for getting up to speed quickly on some aspect of computer graphics that you may need to, freshen your knowledge on. I've done this many times in different areas of computer graphics. I say, how do I get, a jump start on this particular area of computer graphics? Oh, SIGGRAPH University has a course on that. I'll just take a look at that.
So thanks to our Shady behind the scenes, posted the link to the CGEMS, SIGGRAPH CGEMS link up there for our audience to click on, save, enjoy, peruse. So aside from groovy graphics, is there anything else this year you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the whole program, but that's just me. The other thing we're doing that is new in the last couple of years is we are partnering with this sister conference, the Computer Science Education Conference. And so we have one session at SIGGRAPH this year, which is selected papers from SIG-C that will be represented at SIGGRAPH. And then in return, we've had content from SIGGRAPH 2017 just recently represented at SIG-C 2018. So we have a nice sort of prisoner exchange program between the two conferences. And
SIGGRAPH is getting better about that. The Emerging Technologies venue has always invited, as well as exhibited at sister conferences to share some of our best in show work. And there are other venues and conferences that we have maybe a slightly different target demographic, but there's really high quality content out of the ACM SIGs. And so being allowed to include that and share that with our community is always a nice bonus add.
So let me just give you just a very short heads up on the SIG-C representations, because I think they're really interesting papers that a lot of SIGGRAPH attendees will find interesting. We have a paper on game development with a serious focus. We have a paper on brain-computer interfaces. This is a really interesting paper on using basically brainwave control in controlling video games. Sound design for video games, an interdisciplinary course for computer science and art students, and updating introductory computer science with creative computation. So it's a really, in my mind, it's a really nice set of computer science education related papers, but that definitely have a SIGGRAPH computer graphics and interactive techniques focus. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Another question that we'll sometimes get is, how do people get more involved than just being an attendee at the conference? So can you talk a little bit about the role you have, how you got it, and how it supports what you do professionally and vice versa?
Sure. One of the things that you said, MK, right at the beginning is that the name for my role changes from year to year. And in the past years, it's actually been Education Liaison, which is a little bit confusing, so I can see why we changed the name. But the reason it was a liaison is that SIGGRAPH has what are called standing committees, which are committees that work year-round to promote computer graphics interactive techniques, and there is a standing committee on education. So there's a SIGGRAPH standing committee on education. My role last year at the conference as a liaison was technically to liaise with the Computer Science Education Committee, the SIGGRAPH Education Committee. So as a liaison, I was looking out for the conference, whereas the SIGGRAPH Education Committee is looking out for education-related things all year round. And so my role at the conference really came through being involved with the Education Committee. And the Education Committee will have a booth at SIGGRAPH 2018. It will be in what we used to call the SIGGRAPH Village. I'm not sure what we call it this year, but it's a very easily identifiable booth that says SIGGRAPH Education Committee, and it's down in a group of interesting things with the digital arts community and other aspects of SIGGRAPH writ large. So I think the way to get involved, if you're an educator and you find this interesting, is to either talk to me when you see me at the conference, or talk to people at the SIGGRAPH Education Committee booth.
And you are by profession a professor, correct?
Oh, that's true. I guess I didn't introduce myself. I'm a professor at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. I'm in the School of Computing at the University of Utah, but I have a lot of educational interests in technology and arts collaborations. So I collaborate with our art and art history department on courses and curriculum and things like that. So that's where I sit.
And I think we find that across the SIGGRAPH community and the SIGGRAPH committee members is there are something with a something on the side.
Yeah.
You know, an educator who dabbles in technology and engineering, serving on various committees. Right now, I also split my time between working in themed entertainment, interactive experiences, as well as being faculty teaching themed entertainment design university. And in 5 years, that'll be different than in 5 years ago. It was different, but all of them are very, very relevant to the SIGGRAPH community.
Yep.
So the SIGGRAPH Next program, which we're introducing this year, which I'll be chairing for 18 and 19 to get a little continuity. That's an executive committee initiative. And the idea is, what are the next big opportunities or challenges out there in the industry? So for me, my focus is, what are members of our SIGGRAPH community already doing, and that have a foundation in our graphics interactive communities, but may not be on your radar as something that folks in our community are doing. So we have 3 plenary speakers who will be speaking first thing in the morning. We will be providing coffee. And the tracks are...
we'll have coffee at the Educators Forum, too.
You're going to be caffeinated from every corner of the convention center. So we have 3 speakers. One's going to be talking about education, next-gen models and education. One is going to be talking about artificial intelligence and how to get out in front of it as a tool. That is Bob Nichols, who's currently with Blizzard. And then the speaker that we have here for you today, Daniel Szecket, and he is, like Eric was saying, he's a bon vivant across a lot of disciplines. So Daniel's a longtime contributor to SIGGRAPH, submitting in the Emerging Technologies venue. My favorite was the full-size neon pink convertible Cadillac that they had at ETAC in '99, I think it was. Yeah, 1999, that had a VR experience in it. And so if you want to belong on the SIGGRAPH committee, you have to figure out logistics. How do you get a Cadillac into the convention center? But Daniel now, with that foundation of graphics, interactivity, simulation, he's now working in a field that may be surprising to some of the SIGGRAPH community that relies on the skill sets. So I'll let Daniel introduce himself and talk about the work he's doing and what he'll be presenting at SIGGRAPH Next. An important component of SIGGRAPH Next is it's not just a one-time plenary session on site. We will be developing communities of interest online so that folks can, after the fact, continue to have conversations, continue to connect with each other, It's about building a community around these themes.
So I started around 1990 at Alias Research in Toronto. And so my beginnings were, and it was after a couple of years of trying to study engineering. That was not exactly where I should have fit. So I started in software and learning software and training others in software. And once I knew the software really well, I got offers to work with the software, creating content. And so I went off to Disney to work on animated features, and then animated features at DreamWorks as well. I then started design studio of my own, doing interactive stuff of all sorts. That was when I did we did the Emerging Technologies entrance in '99. And from that, moved on to real time. So I've been traveling kind of sideways as opposed to moving up in any one field. So when I was at ATI, I was working on real-time graphics, translating film to real time. And recently, I moved on to human-centered design and worked at a design consultancy. And so I went from learning the software, teaching the software, to learning how to use the software and then applying it. And then I started teaching at Art Center the techniques of making content. And since then, I've been kind of applying all those techniques to other clients, so to a whole variety of fields. And so the field that I'm currently working in as a freelancer, but I'm, that's the jobs that I have right now are one in financial tech. I'm working on management software for municipal debt. And the other field is biomedical field, where I'm developing basically a hopped up Photoshop for cancer research that uses 2D, 3D, and a whole bunch of artificial intelligence to help cancer researchers sift through the kind of data mass that there is now.
So
available.
It's so easy to see in our industry the stuff that ends up on the big screen, right? The visual effects heavy films. It's easy to point at that and say that's where my simulation or design or rendering degrees go.
Right.
Can you pull apart a little bit some of the work you're doing that is less visible on the front end, especially things like the producers who are managing these shows? Although the end product is highly visible, those project management tools and scene management might be foreign to a lot of folks who don't understand what the skill sets are necessary for that, as well as the cancer research you're doing. How does a graphics community, what skill sets do we already have that can help contribute to that?
So the main thing that I'm focusing on for the software that we're developing for the cancer research is kind of enabling these cancer researchers to do what they need to do without having to understand too much about things they really don't need to. So the reason I mentioned Photoshop is Photoshop is actually a fantastic tool for the things that these people are doing, right? It could conceptually do a lot of the things that they need to get done. But Photoshop in itself is a fantastically complex tool that is used for many things and wasn't really developed for the specific uses that they have. And so we are using, for instance, there's been a brand new development in the last few years where it used to be that you could attach color to different cells based on features that they had. So you could use antibodies to attach color to cells. And you could only do that 4 colors, maximum 4 colors at a time, because to get the photograph of that cell in the microscope, you needed to light it up with a particular range of light, and you needed a range of light that was different enough from the next one to make a marker visible. And that was only possible to do with those 4 colors. And then you had to actually scrape off that layer of cells to be able to apply more antibody coloring. And the newest development allows you to not scrape anything off, but to remove those antibodies and recolor and take another photo, which gives you the ability to have hundreds of layers of image on the same cells, which means you can now compare features of individual cells in hundreds of different layers. And when we're, the images that we're talking about are, I don't know, I load up images that are 6 gigs in size. That's 1 layer. Sometimes there's, so they're tiled. They are, the resolutions are ridiculous. They're 16-bit. They're, the kinds of things that film has gotten better at for texturing, that Photoshop is good at because of, I don't know, printing a billboard. But those things are not designed for the kinds of tools that the cancer researchers are using. And so rather than expose all of these tools and just give them a plate full of tools, we're saying, okay, let's take pieces of each of these tools that already exist and apply them to a new tool that makes it, that enables them.
Yeah, I mean, you don't ever want a biomedical engineer to have to learn Photoshop, right? You want to use the tool set that exists to provide them tools. How did you ever hook up with the current company with quantitative imaging systems? How did they find you? How did you find them?
I actually worked with Michelle's daughter at Maya at the design consultancy. So she is a UX designer from CMU, and she introduced me.
So one of the things that we hope to do with SIGGRAPH Next is sort of raise the visibility of both the skill sets that are sort of foundational in computer graphics and interactive techniques, as well as look at some of the challenges in other industries and see where we can make some matches. And you've served SIGGRAPH on some committees and in juries, correct, in the past?
At some point, a long time ago.
Everybody waffles in and out of the universe. And I also like that a unique thing about SIGGRAPH, the organization and the conference specifically, is it's one of the few conferences that really does soup to nuts. You'll see an algorithm presented in the tech papers session one year. The next year you might see the film that it was used in. The next year you might see it available in a software package for sale on the trade show floor. And then interspersed with all that, the education program is working on how to develop those skills, techniques into the curriculums at universities and programs around the place. So there's not a lot of conferences that have that full spectrum. And not only is that what I like about the conference itself, but both of our guests here today, that's them as humans. They've also gone through the research to the education, to the implementation, to the business models.
Yeah, I also want to put in a plug for coming to the conference in person, picking up on what you were talking about in terms of connections. Look at what we're doing right now. We're on, a chat with webcams and we're interacting. And so people say to me all the time, they know I'm in computer science, and they say, why do you go to these conferences in person? You can just Skype, or you can just, do things on the web. And, what they're missing is that opportunity to run into people in the hall. And the reason I think we actually physically get on an airplane and go to conferences is for that. We want to be in the same room as people. And I don't know about you guys, but I've found it so interesting at a super large conference like SIGGRAPH, 20,000 plus people. And yet I walk down the hall of the convention center and oh, look, there's Paul. Oh, Steve, hey, how you doing? Oh, Mary, I haven't seen you since last year. You know, it's amazing how those connections.
We call that corridor culture, and it's the idea that those human interactions where you run into each other in the corridor is where the really good things happen. So Fabio Telles, who's online, has asked for a quick reintroduction as to who our speakers are. Erik?
I'm Erik Brunvand. I'm a professor at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City in the School of Computing, and I'm the 2018 Education Focus Chair for SIGGRAPH.
Daniel?
I'm Daniel Szecket. I currently am a freelance designer, and I used to work in animated films and in real-time graphics.
And Daniel is one of our plenary speakers at the SIGGRAPH Next venue this year, which is a focus on where the future lies and what other industries computer animation, graphics, interactive techniques can contribute to. And now you're both going to be totally Googled. We got a few minutes left. If there's any questions any of our viewers have.
I'll let you know, as long as we have a couple of minutes, I just want to also advertise a couple things that will also be at the Educators Forum. One of the things another thing that I think is really interesting and new about this year's forum is that in previous years, the Educators Forum has largely been curated. So if you've gone to the forum in previous years, if you've liked the content, it's been me who's choosing it, but maybe you don't like the same things I choose. So this year, almost all of the content in the forum has gone through the unified jury. So the content has been submitted through the regular SIGGRAPH unified jury process, and I go to that unified jury and I find things that look education related and I steal them for the forum. So this year at the forum, we have a session of talks. Oh, I should also say the Educators Forum is on Monday and Tuesday of the conference. So it's a full day on Monday and a full day on Tuesday. But we have a session on VR and AR in education. So that's going to be very interesting for educators who want to include VR and AR in their education programs. And then we have a session on animation in education, how you can use computer animation in your classroom, including a very interesting talk on what's called the Massive Collaborative Animation Projects, where a number of universities have banded together to get students working together across different universities to make a large animation that is more work than they could individually do at their own universities. And I know for a fact that they're looking for other partner universities to join that collaborative project. So if you're interested in having your students at your university or other institution, community college, high school, get involved in a massive collaborative cross-country animation project, come to this session and check it out because I think you'll find it very interesting.
So the business symposium that we had mentioned is a separate level of registration. If you go on to the SIGGRAPH 2018 conference website, you can get an update on what content will be presented and how to register for that. SIGGRAPH Next, which is 3 plenary sessions over 3 mornings, is open to every level of registration, so every badge can participate in that. It's also a fairly new venue, so I'm always interested to hear back from folks who participate, what they liked about it, what they hope to see in future years, and that's where Daniel will be presenting. And then the Educators program is, what level of registration is Educators, Erik?
That is select conference and above, so select and full platinum.
I have an anecdote for what Erik was saying in terms of showing up to the conference. Last year when I went, I had just started working with QI, and I bumped into Judith Crow from Side Effects, who has recently put out the Side Effects engine, and we connected to actually start using the Side Effects engine in this software instead of developing all of the software techniques that we have to just do over again, because the engine is built to do a lot of the things that we're trying to do. But there was no way I was connecting with her again after 15 years, unless I was showing up.
And I also knew what my vision was for SIGGRAPH Next and what categories I sort of wanted to aim at, and ran into Daniel at a reception at the Science Museum. So over hors d'oeuvres, we planned what he's participating in right now. So as Erik said, there's no replacement for being there in person.
I agree.
We are right at about time. This session was recorded and will be online for anyone who wants to follow up. You can go to the website, and each of the venues has a contact button. You can just click that and send off email to any of us or to the administrators in general, who will find the right person to send your questions. And we are at your service. I look forward to seeing you on site at every single venue, not just ours. You're going to every single one.
Now you know what we look like. Find us in the hall and say hi.
Yeah, meet us at a reception and plan what's happening in the future. So I'm going to rely on our behind-the-scenes admin, Shady Pixel, who will close this down for us. So now we'll just all stare awkwardly at each other until we are disconnected from the inner tubes. Thanks for everyone who made time to join us. I know that we're in different time zones all over the world. I see we have participants from all over the world, so thanks for logging in.